Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be talking about 6 things that I'm excited for the second half of the 2023 Formula One season. So of course this year Red Bull's been dominant. Verstappen's won the last 8 races, and of course Red Bull has won all of the races so far this season. So I do think that for a lot of fans, there's basically been no title fight, and this year can be kind of classified as a disappointment. But that being said, I do think that there are some reasons to be excited about the second half of the season, despite the fact that realistically, both the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship are already wrapped up. So I'm not really going to go through them in any particular order, but these are just 6 reasons why I'm excited for the second half of the 2023 Formula One season. So the first, number 1, is rookie improvements. So, of course, this year we started with 3 rookies: Nick DeVries, Logan Sargent, and Oscar Piastri. Of course, there's only two of them are left on the grid still, Oscar Piastri and Logan Sargent. And one of the things I'm most excited for the second half of the season is seeing how these 2 drivers progress and how close they get or even possibly surpass their much more established teammates in Alex Albon and Lando Norris. Of course, I'm not really expecting either of them to really be better than their teammates by the end of the season, but I think it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to see how close the 2 rookies can get to their more established teammates. I'll throw in as well Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, of course, the new driver pairing that was put together before the summer break. And of course, Daniel is still kind of getting used to the car and getting used to the AlphaTauri. So it'll definitely be a really interesting battle to watch, as I do think that it could have some implications on how things line up next year. Number 2. Red Bull streaks. So kind of like I mentioned in my introduction, Red Bull of course have won every race this year, and whether or not they can actually possibly win every single race, all 22 races in this Formula One season, is definitely a reason to look forward to the races, even if you're not a Red Bull fan. They've been so dominant in the races, and just along with Max Verstappen, they have a chance to win every single race this year. So that's definitely a historic streak to be watching out for. Again, like I said, Verstappen's on an 8-race streak as well. So if he wins this coming weekend at the Dutch Grand Prix, that would of course tie him with Sebastian Vettel, who has the all-time longest winning streak in Formula One history. So of course those 2 streaks are 2 things that we'll be watching out for in the second half of the year. Number 3. I realized I've done all the other letters in capitals. I might as well do this one too. Alright, 2024 silly season. So of course there's quite a few seats in F1 that are still up for grabs for 2024, and they've not really been decided. Last year, of course, at this time, we'd already had the fiasco and we had a whole bunch of movement in the driver market. But for this year, things have been pretty quiet. That being said, there are quite a few drivers who are still not under contract, most notably Lewis Hamilton, who is yet to re-sign with Mercedes. That being said, I would expect him to stay at Mercedes. That being said, I do think there are a couple of spots where there could be some interest for those for next year. Notably Alfa Romeo, where I think it's really going to be a battle between Zhou and Pourchaire for that second Alfa Romeo seat next year. AlphaTauri I think will be really interesting. I think it will be between Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Lawson, between the 3 of them, to see which 2 stick around for next year. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Haas as well, I believe neither driver is under contract for next year. But that being said, I can't really think of any notable drivers off the top of my head who would be in line to replace either driver. That being said, those are probably some of the things that will definitely be an interesting headline to follow as the season concludes. Number 4, so this is kind of 2 things in one, but they're related. Let's see, so 2nd, 7th battles. So for me, the battles for 2nd and 7th in the Constructors Championship are two of the more interesting ones to look at. So of course we know that the first is pretty much wrapped up with Red Bull winning the Constructors, but that battle for 2nd place between Mercedes, who I do think are at this point the heavy favorite for 2nd, Mercedes, Aston, McLaren, is something that is very, very interesting. In every single race, the order among those 4 teams has been quite different, so it's definitely something to look forward to as the season goes along, and seeing that battle for 2nd place in the Constructors Championship. The other battle that's pretty tight is the battle for 7th. The bottom 4 teams in the championship, Williams, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, and Haas, are currently battling out for that 7th place. And 3 of those teams, basically the 3 that aren't AlphaTauri, are all very, very close for that battle for 7th. And for those lower teams, that prize money could be extremely crucial. So these 2 battles here are definitely ones I'm definitely looking out for in the Constructors Championship. Number 5, let's see. Development race. So with this year's regulations being pretty stable, being almost entirely stable, I believe, going into next year, development race in the second half of the season is going to be something to watch. We saw during the summer, McLaren brought some upgrades to their car, and it basically took their car from 6th fastest, 7th fastest at times, to right up near the 2nd or 3rd fastest the last couple weekends, or the last 3 weekends, I believe. So that's definitely, we've seen this year that with the 2023 cars and how close everyone is together and how fickle these cars are, bringing one key upgrade can make a massive difference to the car's performance. And even last year, we saw Aston Martin towards the second half of the season, basically in terms of race pace, go to that gap, that lower gap with the Haas and the AlphaTauri and the Alfa Romeo, and basically they managed to bring themselves up into that gap with the McLaren and the Alpine on race day. So it'll be interesting to see what other teams, what kind of movement there is in the development race in the second half of the 2023 season. Last one, this one's, I don't know, it's kind of a reason, but I decided to include it anyway. Milestone victories. So, of course, Red Bull have been dominating this season so far, but that being said, I do think that there are some drivers who are in position either for their first win in a long time, which could basically apply to anyone who isn't on Red Bull, whether that be Alonso, Hamilton, or even drivers looking for their first win, such as Norris or even Piastri, or even if things go absolutely crazy, a Lance Stroll, for example. But reality is that we do have 10 races left in the season, and we saw last year that with usually when reliability gets a little bit worse in the second half of the season, just as parts become a little bit more worn, it does increase the potential slightly a little bit for some surprise results, some surprise victories. And assuming it's basically not a Red Bull driver, at this point it would be a pretty long time coming for pretty much any other driver on the grid. So those are just 6 things I'm looking forward to for the second half of the 2023 Formula 1 season. Of course, we get started again. Or I guess we don't get started. We resume again with the Dutch Grand Prix this coming week, and of course, I'll be doing my preview for that in a couple days time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.